Hello there, Peter from Universal Dork, here today to talk about some stop-motion animation mayhem. There's a couple films I wanted to mention here. This brand new one that literally just came out called
The Primevals.
Very interesting film that has been many years in the making. I believe in the 1960s, the idea was conceived by a guy named David Allen, who's sort of a stop-motion visual effects guy in his own right. He was part of the Charles Band, a lot of Charles Band stuff, like Dolls and Puppet Master, some of the stop-motion stuff you see in there, as well as visual effects in a lot of other films. But him and Charles Band are were kind of buddies, because sadly he passed away in 1999. And this film, they've been sitting on this for quite a while, and they more recently wrapped up filming, completed it finally, and now they just released this on Blu-ray, and I got a copy here. And another film that I wanted to talk about as well, Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires. This is a film that I think actually deserves to be talked about a lot more as well. It is stop-motion animation mayhem to the max. So this film I have been waiting for quite a while to watch. The Primevals has been on my radar. A few years back, I believe, they had a GoFundMe to complete this thing, which, as I mentioned, was started in the 60s. The primary filming and stop-motion animation effects for the Primevals was mainly done, I believe, in the 90s. I think maybe 1994 is when they filmed most of it. So this thing I had high hopes for, and I'm going to say it was a pretty fun little film. Maybe not quite as great as I was hoping that it was going to be. I think maybe the hype for this hyped up maybe a tad too much from Charles Band and several other online sources and websites that covered it. That is not to say that The Primevals was not a damn fun little adventure film, because that's really what it is. It feels sort of like a 40s or 1930s kind of pulpy adventure, very King Kong-ish. Like, this obviously is taking beats from the original King Kong movie, which you gotta love. And they pull some of this shit off in a very fantastic way. Like I said, some of the best stop-motion animation I've ever seen. It is absolutely breathtaking. Opens with a bang. It does lull a little bit in the middle there when we meet the human characters who go on this expedition, two anthropologists that head out to the Himalayas to do more research on the Yeti after they are delivered a body into the United States of a deceased Yeti that appears to have had some sort of experimentation done on its cranium by someone else or something else. So they get this little group together to head out into the mountains, and of course they hire this sort of low-rent Indiana Jones type guy named Rondo Montana. Yes, that is his name. But the characters in general, I think, are a bit of why this movie might suffer a little bit. They're very bland. Even Rondo is a bit bland. Someone with that name should be a bona fide badass. They all head out to the Himalayas. They discover this strange cave that they venture into. Within the cave, the frigid, icy tundra of what they were just traveling through opens up into this warm forest climate where they immediately are able to take all of their winter gear off. And once they're in there, that's where the fun really begins. Only problem is it takes a little while for that to happen. And I can't really say I was bored, because I was waiting for the stop motion to kick in, and it does a little bit here and there in the middle of the movie and stuff. You get a little bit, but it really leaves you just yearning for that insane finale that sort of comes and makes this whole thing more worthwhile, because once they're inside the woods, they very quickly discover they're not alone, but it does lead to that sort of satisfying finale that you were hoping for, at least I was hoping for, where we get some major Yeti action, weird stop-motion reptilian humanoid creatures. You get more of these cavemen. Nothing too mind-blowing story-wise. It does have that old-school vibe, which I did appreciate. It's sort of refreshing to see something like this in the sea of shit that they're pumping out now. Overall, The Primevals was a lot of fun. It got a little bit too talky at points, but we visit some very sweet real locations where this thing was filmed, and also some awesome sets that were built for this movie, and also some miniature stop motion sets as well. This is a really fun film. I highly recommend checking this out. Don't go in with the expectations that I did. Go in more thinking you're going to check out, a Lost 90s full moon film, and I don't think you'll be too disappointed, because I think if I would have just watched this sort of blindly, I would have just really loved this movie even more. So Primevals, a really great new release. This particular DVD, it's a full moon feature. It has no extras on it. It just has a trailer. There's like a collector's edition of this thing that comes with an insane amount of additional materials and featurettes that you can watch about all of the stop motion and the conception of the film from the 60s on, its development through the 90s. I actually really like films like this that kind of have been lost for a long time and people put the finishing touches on, even if it is quite sad that David Allen was not there to really witness the final film version of this. So this has got a little bit of a kind of a sweetness to it for that matter alone. So check this shit out. If you like Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and the Yeti and, stuff like that, you're definitely going to get a kick out of the Primevals. All right. So next up, we've got another stop motion gem. This one, Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires. I think 2018 was when it was released in the UK. It's a British film. And then 2023 was when this Blu-ray actually came out and was available to the United States. So I picked this thing up immediately. I had actually rented it online when it came out digitally, and I was pretty blown away by it. Chuck Steele is not your average stop-motion animation film. No way. This thing is jam-packed with bonkers action, ridiculous characters, and a very, very ambitious storyline with special effects that will absolutely amaze you. So I'd say Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires, is kind of what would be considered a vanity project, meaning that this guy, Mike Mort, who wrote, directed, and actually voices the main character, Chuck Steele, the main driving force behind this thing, he had come up with this idea for this movie in 2001, and even came up with the original idea of the character of Chuck Steele, I believe, back when he was a kid. So this has been something that he's wanted to do for a long time. And eventually the time was right, because he made another film in the 2000s, a short film called, I think it was Balls of Steel, and it featured Chuck Steele right here, this guy. He's the main character. He's a total doofus. It featured him in sort of a short action film with some horror elements to it. And then this film took it even further once he was able to come up with $20 million of funding to make this thing, upwards of 400 and some puppets and all of these miniatures. I gotta say, this is one of the most ambitious stop motion animation films that I've ever seen. This thing is an action film. It takes place in the 80s. It's got a ton of cool 80s music in it. Vixen is in there with songs, the band Saxon. I think Saxon might have even written a new song for the movie, if I'm not mistaken. It takes place in 1986, and it follows these three characters. This sort of like Fright Night, Roddy McDowell type of characters. And then this is his boss, Jack Shit, his name is. And he's a pretty cool character. This film is sort of known to be not PC. Some humor here that I do find to be a little bit questionable. The way that I describe kind of the humor in here would be that it's kind of like, I would say, in line with maybe like something like South Park. Pretty much everyone is made fun of. This thing was conceived to feel just like an 80s film. Imagine like a raunchy 80s sex comedy mixed with Evil Dead 2, mixed with like a Dolph Lundgren film or a Schwarzenegger, Stallone style cop film. That's basically what you get here. This guy is a complete and utter numbnut. He's kind of a renegade cop. He's playing that sort of character, and his boss there, Jack Shit, is kind of ordering him around. And right away, we find out that there is a supernatural threat that's thrust upon the city. And Chuck Steele is the only one, apparently, who can take on this evil force of Trampires, these vicious hybrid hobo vampires all over the place. All done with some of the best stop motion animation that you've ever seen put to film. Watching some of the special features on here is absolutely incredible. Watching all of these people working on this, all of these miniature sets, everything that they did, pretty much everything in this film is practical. Insane gore, explosions, car chases, and some of the best fucking stop motion monsters. This is not just a few, Trampires roaming around, getting blown up. There are insane creatures at the end. So beautifully done. It's absolutely incredible. So I can't really say enough good things about Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires. And I also really recommend Primevals. This might be a fun double feature. Let me know what you think of Chuck Steele, if you've seen it before, if you find it completely offensive. And also let me know what your favorite stop motion animation film is. Give me your recommendations down in the comments, and I will see you next time.